Hey everybody, today we are going to be talking about the slap heard round the world, apparently. Will Smith slapped Chris Rock in the middle of the Academy Awards ceremony. I don't know when he slapped him, but at some point during the ceremony he slapped them, and it was a big shock, obviously. Normally I wouldn't be posting a video reaction to a slap, but I don't know, this one just seemed too interesting to pass up. As most people know who watch me regularly, I do not watch the Oscars. That's just a personal choice. I'm not a fan of them. They tend to just kind of bring me down overall. I did a video before the Oscars this year called Why the Oscars Don't Matter. So, if you want more information on that, check out that video. But naturally, just the nature of what I do on here, it is hard to avoid. So naturally, the next day, I tend to, catch up on, a lot of the moments that maybe stood out the night before, if any did stand out. And this is the first time I was alerted to something happening midway through the show. So I actually found out about this before the show was even over. And I didn't even realize the Oscars were still going on when I saw it. And it's probably the most shocking moment I've ever seen at the Oscars. But yes, for those who didn't see it, Chris Rock came out and he was just, making jabs at the audience. He makes a jab at Will Smith's wife Jada, and they're both kind of, sitting very close to the stage. And he makes, a small joke, not particularly good or whatever, about G.I. Jane 2, that he's looking forward to seeing her in the movie and, obviously referencing her hair or lack thereof. Instantly, they show the reaction of the Smiths, and Will is giving what looked to me to be a genuine laugh. I mean, I've seen Will Smith on many talk shows, and he has a tendency to do the majorly cartoony, very like extroverted fake laugh, kind of like Jimmy Fallon, but more aggressive for sure. It's the cackle, just the ha ha, like the head going back and all of that that you typically see from Will Smith. But this one looked like a normal, just a that's funny kind of reaction. Of course, Jada does not take jokes very well, as we've seen for years in the past. But yeah, she didn't think it was funny. And, obviously, she struggles with alopecia. I can understand why she'd be sensitive, but, it's a joke, relax. What I would give to have seen a camera on both of them, between where she has that reaction and when he goes on stage, because we don't see. So it looked very much like he was laughing at it, and then suddenly the moment he realizes that his wife is not amused, he, leaps to action in her honor. But yeah, when that happened, it feels very surreal, and certainly it was not staged. I mean, absolutely not. This was not staged. No one is that good of an actor. Certainly Chris Rock, I don't think, is that good of an actor. Yeah, I mean, to me, it was an instant, like, no, this is absolutely real. And, it's shocking, I guess, because, we've known Will Smith for a really long time. Obviously he had a huge career at a certain point. Now he's kind of dwindled naturally, as you tend to do as you get older. But he's always been very much or his persona has always remained very intact for a long time. Last few years have become, a little shakier. I should say it's gotten shakier and shakier as time has gone on. The speculation about his marriage and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, he's somebody that tends to care very much about how he appears to the public. He's always wanted to be the super positive, likable guy. I mean, obviously in the 90s, it was very important to him, especially, his rap persona, his image. He didn't like to curse. He was very much somebody who wanted to create a certain image that was maybe more squeaky clean, shall we say. And then he becomes, this huge movie star very, very quickly. And, box office really mattered to him. He always picked movies that he thought would be big crowd pleasers. And, he always had a thing, every movie he was in would open at #1, and he wanted to keep that streak. Those sorts of things are very important to him. That's just, the kind of person he is, the kind of performer that he is. All of that's fine. He was offered Django Unchained, of course, as we've found out, and he turned that down because he didn't like the idea of, his persona being rocked in that way. Obviously, it would be rattled. It's a controversial film, and he wasn't ready to take those risks because he was afraid of how he would be perceived. So it's been very interesting watching him sort of cling to a certain persona, or at least, use a certain persona to get to a certain point. And then slowly, as those smoke and mirrors begin to fade, how much, they cling to that persona in a very kind of like Norma Desmond sense, it's like a Billy Wilder movie. Jada, has seemed to me to be quite a piece of work for a very long time. But yeah, I mean, obviously, people's perceptions of Jada are very different. I think a lot of people don't like her. There's been a lot of backlash towards her. So, maybe Will Smith feels the need to defend her, on that front. It did feel very much like somebody just really wanting to protect the illusion of this marriage, that, they're still loyal to each other and all of that. And obviously, after the moment happened, from what I saw, they held hands throughout the show, and they very much wanted to, create a certain image the rest of the show as the publicists are scrambling and whatnot. I feel very bad for them. I'm sure they were had no sleep last night trying to scramble for this guy. It's just very interesting. I think it's a perfect symbol of seeing just how people's ideologies have changed over time. And especially when you see it in Los Angeles, it's particularly like kind of the woke ideologies. You see people slowly kind of turning into a certain type of person. And yeah, I mean, clearly, as we've seen from him, I think he knows that, the identity of his marriage, just his morals that he may have had in the beginning, the code of marriage, the honesty of all that, the tradition of marriage is beginning to wither as far as his own family is concerned. And, they have this new kind of more free, liberated identity that they've adapted, and it's clearly not working for them. And I think it's a tough thing to begin with. I think it would be for any couple. I don't care who you are. But it's clear here that the disconnect is real. I think that, we saw that video where Jada tries to explain herself to Will, and it's very, very cringy. It's very, very, very uncomfortable because clearly, it's like a meme. He is clearly dying inside while she is explaining herself with all these, like all this delusional bullshit. And as I said, just in his personality, when he goes on talk shows, he has a tendency to be really big, and, clearly he's trying to like overcompensate for something or whatever, trying to create a certain, sort of energy, which, one could admire to a degree. Typically it's an attempt at positive energy. It's never really worked for me. As I said, maybe it's just, I'm very introverted. So that energy, I'm like, it's a little much for me, but, I understand what he's doing there. So this, obviously felt completely out of character from a persona perspective, because what's the one place that it's important to try to protect your persona because cameras are always on you? It's the Oscars, the most important night in the eyes of, Hollywood elites. So there's just this salvaging, trying to salvage your reputation. And it's such out of such desperation, just scrambling to keep the smoke and mirrors intact of everything. And, this persona that they've tried to create of being the perfect couple. They said many years ago that, divorce is not an option and all of these things. But obviously the past morals that they had are getting tangled up in all of these new ones, the kind of the wokeified Los Angeles celebrity culture where openness without restraint or responsibility is fine. And I think when somebody has a certain persona and it's clearly starting to crumble a little bit, the foundation, a lot of times people feel like if they talk about it, it helps them keep that sense of control. So it's like, he came out with this memoir apparently where he's revealing a lot of stuff, airing out a lot of dirty laundry that made people, yes, very uncomfortable and might have been quite surprising, that he's revealing these sorts of things. I don't know him, obviously, but they all just seem like, to me, tactics to remain in control. But when you're a veteran like Will Smith, you've been in the public eye for so long, you've been famous for so long, people just kiss your ass all the time and tell you, you're amazing all the time. When you start slipping, those delusions and everything, it's like you don't know, how out of touch with reality you are. And so naturally you start coming off in a way that is, going to put people off. And based on what I saw here, that's a criminal offense. I'm not surprised by any of this, but, after that moment happened, me as a person sitting there in the audience, I would instantly kind of feel a little cold to Will Smith. I wouldn't be ready to stand for him when he wins his Oscar, just because everything is so perplexing and what an awkward moment. But of course, the celebrities all stand and people are going up to him at parties and in between commercial breaks, hugging him and consoling him. And I'm like, I don't know. I find this to be very rude, very kind of disgraceful behavior. Like, to me, nobody should be hugging anybody. I have to say, though, Chris Rock handled it so well. I mean, already when you're at the Oscars and you're presenting something and you're a comedian, it's the toughest room in the world. Like, these people obviously cannot take jokes naturally. So he goes up there and all of this happens on live television and, in an event like this. I mean, he really his reaction was exactly how I felt. I love the moment where after it happens, he kind of says something like, I could have just for a minute, he says like, I coulda, and he stops himself, and then it's quiet, and it's like, is this really happening? And he kind of looks backstage like, am I supposed to keep going? Are you guys not going to cut to commercial? It was so, yeah, surreal. Chris is a veteran as well. As soon as he slapped him, he didn't, he wasn't defensive. He didn't, try to do anything. He just kind of took it and stood there, didn't touch his face or anything, just kept going. I don't know. It seemed very composed. I don't know what I would have done in that situation. But, props to him for handling it quite well. And obviously, because I wasn't watching the show, I didn't know that Will Smith hadn't won yet. So I was trying to sort out everything that happened, right? And so I watched the speech, and it was just again, very, very uncomfortable, and it just makes it seem worse, or just the way he comes off, it makes him seem worse and worse and worse. Those were the eyes of the, dying inside meme, Will Smith, with the tears coming down. I don't know, it just, to me, it seems like a broken guy, somebody who's almost kind of self-sabotaging themselves out of some sort of masochistic urge, through depression, whatever it is, identity crisis, and the delusions of the rich scramble a lot of rationality there, as we know. I love how you can't just be apologetic, you can't be honest in your speech. Everything has to be framed through the context of whatever it is you're promoting. I'm winning an Oscar for King Richard, so the whole time I have to bring up the movie and all that. All that is very typical movie star. We see it all the time. It's nauseating. And of course, it's like, I'm a celebrity, so it's like I preach to you all like I'm some sort of god. I'm a vessel for love and all this nonsense. I'm a moral beacon of hope. I'm not sure why somebody would make a speech about being a vessel for love and all this stuff when they just did that. For that to be the running theme of the speech seemed utterly perplexing to me, when clearly, visibly the confidence and the manhood just looks like it is withering away before our eyes in a really pathetic way. And the way they salvage it, it's like they think we're stupid. It's like, no, we clearly see what we're seeing. And I thought Denzel tied everything together quite nicely, just in terms of what he said, that Will brought up what he said, like at your highest moment, that's when the devil comes for you. When they cut back to him, just a priceless look on his face of like, yeah, man. Yeah, remember that. But they call the speech, I see on YouTube, like, Will Smith apologizes in his speech. And I'm like, where? I mean, he barely apologized at all to me. He apologized very briefly to the Academy and to the nominees. I did not, hear an apology to Chris Rock in there at all. But then he doesn't even really finish the apology there. He goes on about like, I don't know, said something about like being a guiding light or some, nonsense. It's just, again, it's a lot of lofty sentences put together. But, within the last 7-8 years, maybe more than that, we've just seen the cult of celebrity ramp up, majorly to extreme degrees, naturally because of the political landscape, just the pendulum just, swinging in one direction and the other, no middle ground. And of course, now that we have all the tools, the technology where we get to see stuff, more behind the scenes, we have social media and all of these things, we get multiple angles of things that are happening from different, cell phone cameras. It's like, it's very hard to keep the smoke and mirrors intact for these movie stars. It just is. More is revealed about them. So much of who they are is harder to conceal. And the reason why Hollywood, was so powerful and charismatic at a certain point is because nobody knew anything about the movie stars. Like nobody knew who Cary Grant was. Nobody knew who Katharine Hepburn really was. It was all kind of just a speculation of who they were. And I don't know, it just feels like a lot of celebrities want to, have that idea of like mystique and everything. And yet at the same time, they're still of this era where they're desperate for a certain attention while, the smoke and mirrors are fading. I don't know. I just see it as a very destructive thing, and they don't seem to be very aware of that. And with the delusions, obviously, out goes the backbone, clearly, because it's like when people apologize for things, there's rarely any dignity at all. We always have to make it about everything else, external things. It's always, when people apologize, they are the victim. It's like when Will Smith is apologizing here, it's not his fault. He never says, I messed up here. It's like he complains about the media. He says, oh, the world is so mean to me. And, like all the scrutiny we receive. And it's like, yes, but you also voluntarily put out information that is going to, draw some reactions. So I don't know what you expect there. And you'd think, being a celebrity, you'd be used to a lot of scrutiny, but I don't know. They seem much more sensitive to it. I look at Ellen DeGeneres as an example. You know, when all this stuff came out about she might have a very toxic work environment, you know, she didn't take it on herself to apologize really, you know, in a dignified way. What did she do? She blamed it on misogyny or something. I don't even know. And yeah, so it's always the world's fault. It's always the world's fault. And it's unbelievable how much people deflect and how much people have changed. They are trying so hard to conceal the strings, and the strings have been in plain sight for so long. So it's like you're not salvaging anything. You are just making it worse for yourself. I see just this that happened, this particular moment. Again, I didn't see the rest of the show really other than the speech and that part of it. I see it as just a really sad symbol of, you know, the state of Hollywood. It is a sagging piece of culture. It's lost, kind of like caught in this weird place where it's like, it's not enough to just completely let it go yet, but it's very, very close to that. So it's just, you know, barely getting by. Hollywood is more seen as the enemy these days. And, you know, rather than recognize it, we fall deeper into the delusions, and the show just becomes more and more and more embarrassing and out of touch. We witness Will Smith having his Norma Desmond moment. You know, he might as well have just had like the corpse of a monkey right next to him. But, you know, Hollywood is just a corpse, and it's like they're trying to revive it and put wigs on it. I've used that metaphor before. It's creepy. It's genuinely creepy. It's like watching like 1984 or something like that. The video that I made not so long ago, I stand by all of it. The Oscars do not matter. They depend on these moments of, you know, like impulsive chaos, bad behavior to maintain any sort of relevance at all. They need shock value. So instantly when this happened, I thought, wow, the ratings are probably gonna go up, but I don't think it's going to last for a long time, because again, this is kind of just a cheap shot. It's a cheap thing to remain relevant just for a period, and then I see it going right back to where it was. Something has to fundamentally change about this show, you know, in order for it to, you know, people to get back on the side of it in any sort of form. So it's like, you know, this is just not enough to salvage the show, in my opinion. I think it's dead. It's been dead for a long time. Its best hope are moments like this, and you know, they were very lucky to have it in a way. But just, you know, from a moral perspective, and just from, I don't know, it felt very cringy and embarrassing to me. And yes, just another very revealing aspect of Hollywood, just right at the forefront for us to see, just a major symbol as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I don't know. I'm just somebody who speculates. I'm not special or anything. I just give my 2 cents on the matter. I don't know what's going to happen. I will be very interested to see how people receive Will Smith. Will he be glorified? Will people be against him? What is it going to do to his career? What does it do to, again, that persona that he created? I mean, this is going to tarnish it. People are not going to remember that he won an Oscar last night. They're going to remember this moment. And I do not think that's what he wanted for himself. I mean, you know, again, just based on how he's wanted to be perceived in the past. So yes, all very perplexing. I think it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, I don't know. It just keeps kind of proving the point overall. Like I said, desperation mixed with delusion is not typically a good combination. But anyway, that is my video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website. As always, it is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist and I do commissioned portraits. I also sell prints of my work. If that is something that you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons who are wonderful. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.